A nation that has witnessed 2 major wars, 2 foreign occupations, countless massacres, and repeated regime changes over the last 40 years. To take the easy way out and simply blame the US for everything is to ignore the other side of the coin, the deep-seated sociological fractures within its own borders. Iraq. To truly grasp the tragedy of Iraq's modern history, one must first understand the invisible, unwritten boundaries carved into its map. The nation is fractured along deep-seated sectarian and ethnic fault lines, from the Kurdish mountains in the north to the Sunni deserts of the west, and down to the Shia heartlands of the south. To find the root of the chaos that reshaped the region, we must travel back to the ultimate turning point, the 2003 invasion. The US military occupied Iraq by entering Baghdad just a few weeks after the invasion began. On paper, it appeared to be an absolute victory. However, the reality on the ground shifted rapidly. The conflict soon ceased to be a conventional war against a regular army. Instead, it evolved into a relentless guerrilla war waged by asymmetric forces and irregular units under the leadership of Zarqawi, the leader of al-Qaeda at the time. The campaign Washington formulated as the War on Terror was on the verge of becoming a strategic defeat for the United States. The man who would break this deadlock was David Petraeus, the same commander overseeing U.S. forces during the infamous Hood event, involving Turkish soldiers in Sulaymaniyah. Petraeus orchestrated a pivotal shift by aligning with Sunni tribal leaders to launch the Sawa Awakening movement. This strategy effectively dismantled al-Qaeda's influence within the Sunni population and suppressed their stronghold in the region. The collapse on the ground had become impossible to conceal. Under the guidance of Abu Hamza al-Muhajir, the organization drafted a comprehensive 55-page analytical report. This document served as a formal admission of their near-total defeat between 2008 and 2010. However, its true purpose went beyond mere confession. It was a strategic blueprint designed to evaluate their failures and establish a more realistic, lethal foundation for ISIS's future global ambitions. Anticipating the eventual U.S. withdrawal, Abu Hamza al-Muhajir famously critiqued rival factions by stating, "If they fire 1 rocket, they set aside 10 for the future." Following this doctrine of strategic patience, ISIS preserved its remaining militants, assigning them to long-term, calculated sabotage missions. By 2011, 2 major catalysts enabled the organization's resurrection. First, the failure of successive Bush and Obama administrations to manage the post-war power vacuum, and second, the regional chaos ignited by the Arab Spring across the Middle East and Africa. ISIS was already braced for the storm, having anticipated the massive power vacuum that would emerge. Following the U.S. withdrawal, the organization rapidly intensified its operations, seizing control of villages and towns across provinces like Anbar and Saladin. A common misconception about ISIS is that it was the sole alternative to the Iraqi army at the time. In reality, until it became a global phenomenon in 2014, ISIS was merely one of dozens of competing factions embroiled in the Iraqi conflict. ISIS was far from the only player in the chaos. A broad coalition, including Ansar al-Islam and the Military Council of Iraqi Tribes, along with Izzat Ibrahim al-Duri's forces, had declared war on the Iranian-backed Baghdad government, In fact, by 2009, the US had assessed the Naqshbandi army as a more potent threat than al-Qaeda, citing their deep-rooted Sunni ties and military discipline. Yet, while these established factions remained stagnant, ISIS capitalized on the paralysis, rapidly expanding its reach. Those who had stood by the Iraqi army in early 2014 either switched allegiances or vanished into neutrality by June. The question was inevitable. How did a fringe group defeat a national army equipped with the finest American weaponry? According to ISIS, a force barely larger than the legendary army of the Battle of Badr launched an assault against 60,000 Iraqi troops in Mosul. Within days, the city collapsed. Hundreds of prisoners were liberated, high-tech arsenals were seized, and with a population of 500,000, Mosul became the financial lifeblood of the group. This was the masterwork of Abu Abdulrahman al-Bilawi. Killed just 6 days before the city's fall, the head of the ISIS military council was the true architect behind the Mosul offensive. The assault was carried out in his memory, a lethal tribute to the man who drafted the blueprint for their most significant victory.
لله در معسكر الأبطال وقع الرصاص على العدا متوالي حتى غدت همراتهم من رمينا مثقوبة.
So, who exactly was al-Bilawi? A member of the influential Dulaimi tribe in Anbar, Bilawi was no ordinary insurgent. He was a trained officer, graduating from the Iraqi Military Academy in 1993. Having served in various military roles until the 2003 U.S. invasion, he held the rank of captain when the old regime collapsed. But the puzzle is incomplete without Adnan al-Suwaidawi, the former shadow governor of Anbar. Sharing the same tribal roots as Bilawi, Suwaidawi was the strategist who captured the pivotal city of Ramadi and consolidated ISIS's grip over the entire province. Most notably, he was the mastermind behind the infamous 2013 Abu Ghraib prison break. Through this operation, he secured the escape of dozens of key figures, including his childhood friend, al-Bilawi. Suwaidawi had reached the rank of lieutenant colonel in Saddam Hussein's army and served within the elite Iraqi air defense intelligence. This institutional military expertise provided the lethal backbone for ISIS, transforming a fringe insurgency into a calculated professional war machine. We turn our route further north to Baiji, home to Iraq's largest oil refinery and industrial center. Due to its strategic importance, ISIS's consecutive wave of city conquests eventually reached this point as well. Bassem Sina was the man responsible for the administration and war strategy of this city, which witnessed intense clashes and changed hands multiple times for an entire year. When he was killed in a U.S. airstrike in 2016, the Iraqi army was actually unaware of the magnitude of the prize they had secured. This was because Bassem Sina was the mastermind behind the major offensives that completely eliminated the Iraqi army's presence in the Anbar province. It was difficult to fit Sina into a single mold. You could see him sometimes leading a small-scale raid in Anbar, sometimes at the operations center of the Mosul offensive, and sometimes in the very heart of the fiercest clashes in Baiji. According to U.S. intelligence, Sina, whose military background traced back to al-Qaeda, was the commander of the Jaish al-Dabiq battalion, one of the organization's most dangerous units. This special battalion led by Sina was responsible for technical and lethal operations such as the preparation of vehicle-borne improvised explosive devices, complex setups, and the organization of chemical weapon attacks. Sina utilized his years of military experience not only to fight, but also to train new militants and to consolidate ISIS's grip over the territories they controlled. To the left of Bassam Sina, we see Abu Layth al-Ansari, who was appointed governor after the fall of Mosul. His hierarchical significance within ISIS can be understood even from the official visuals released. However, his governorship was short-lived. He was killed in another U.S. airstrike just 3 to 4 months after taking office. But let's look at the true strategic mind at the top of the pyramid, Abu Muslim al-Turkmani. He was the one managing all of ISIS's military operations and strategic maneuvers. While serving as the chief of intelligence and special forces in the Iraqi army, his ideas were radicalized by Abu Ali al-Anbari. He was on the ground from the Gulf War to the 2003 invasion of Iraq. He later utilized all this professional experience for the ISIS movement, spanning from Zarqawi to Baghdadi.
Haji was number 2 to Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, the leader of ISIS, someone the U.S. wanted to get very badly.
Anbari, the man who radicalized him, was once a major general in the Iraqi army, rushing from one war to another.
Indeed, the U.S. military killed several key ISIL terrorists this week, including, we believe, Haji Iman.
These cadres who made Baghdadi powerful and equipped ISIS with limitless military tactics and skills were only a few of the known names. It is no coincidence that the U.S. specifically targeted these key figures, despite the organization having hundreds of thousands of members. It was a strategy to dismantle the brain trust of the group. Between 2014 and 2015, ISIS swallowed Anbar, Saladin, and Nineveh. It seized Fallujah and Samarra, reaching the gates of Baghdad. Facing this massive threat, Washington and its allies first moved to remove Prime Minister Maliki from office. Then the Iranian-backed Popular Mobilization Forces, Hashd al-Shabi, and Hezbollah were deployed. The coordinator of this force was Qasem Soleimani. In the north, Kurdish forces closed off a border stretching from Sinjar to Halabja against the ISIS advance. However, the intervention most needed had to come from the U.S. Having fought in this geography for 8 years, America was well acquainted with the organization's genetics, combat skills, and cell structures. Barack Obama, who was initially reluctant to engage in a new war and sought to avoid further trouble for America, explained why the fight against ISIS was necessary after witnessing the Yazidi genocide and many other massacres through a famous film character. In the movie Batman: The Dark Knight, there are gang leaders who run Gotham. They are thugs, but they have a territory and an order they are responsible for. Then Joker comes along and takes great pleasure in setting the city on fire for no reason, destroying the entire order. This is what ISIS does, and that is why we must fight it. The US-led anti-ISIS coalition was followed by massive battles such as Baiji, Fallujah, Samarra, and Mosul. This process, which cost tens of thousands of lives and caused irreparable damage, eventually forced ISIS back to its pre-2013 state. Today, analysts and experts believe that a slight political instability or a short-term chaos would be enough for ISIS to return to its former glory days. This is certainly not impossible. However, if ISIS no longer possesses those military veterans, the former major generals, lieutenant colonels, intelligence chiefs, or special forces members, this task will be much harder. Because what America did was not just kill effective figures, it was to irreversibly obstruct the vision and capacity of ISIS.